Welcome to The Lab.
What's going on, all you brainiacs out there, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Fantasy Football Laboratory. I am your host, the King of Trade, Shane Palma, joined as always by Spitfire Lucas Parrish.
What's going on, guys?
And the chemist, Jack McGrath.
Shane, how are we doing today?
Well, the end of week 1 is here, and we are on to week 2, and it's just flying by now already. It's just flying by. Jets already lost, nothing new.
Bears already won, nothing
New?
Nothing new.
The Chiefs
You
just...
should have won in the order of the Jets, the Chiefs, and then the Bears.
The Chiefs won, nothing new.
Nothing new.
The Bears won something extremely new against my Super Bowl pick. So, you know.
That's a bad look.
But it was a monsoon.
Yeah.
Give him another week.
Okay.
Give him another week.
All right, I'm just going to say this now. The 49ers should have benefited from the weather conditions of that game. For a team that should be primarily running the ball with Trey Lance,
they
didn't.
Their best run blocker. George Kittle was not playing
Your
that
D-line
game.
looked either legit or their offensive line looked really bad.
One of the two.
Yep. That was the biggest problem there.
For me, I'm taking that game because we're not going to have time to recap every single game that just happened and also go into every single game. So we'll kind of recap as we go along and talk about this upcoming week's game. I'll just start off with that one real quick. To me, that game was a fluke.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I agree.
It was a fluke. The Bears were good enough to win at home in those conditions. They know their team. Justin Fields looked confident with what he needed to do.
Second half of the game. First half he looked pretty
First
good.
half was brutal.
But there are a few things that I think are a fluke about it. I don't think Cole Kmet's going to have 0 points.
I hope not.
I really don't think he will. Darnell Mooney's not going to have less than 2 points, 3 points, whatever he had. They couldn't throw the ball, guys.
It's a monsoon.
Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel saved by his rushing ability. If not, what did Deebo had
8 targets, 8 rush attempts.
Yeah, so it's that game to me was a little bit fluky. If you have the ability to buy low on a Mooney, or if someone drops
Deebo.
Kmet, I would pick up Kmet off the waiver wire as your backup tight end still. He was a backup tight end in a lot of my leagues, and I'm keeping him there. And, of course, Brandon Ayuk, I think, is also a great person to buy low. But let's get into the games, because we never have time to finish, and I want to actually try to get through the games today. Lucas, it looks like you and I are going to this game tomorrow. When people are listening to this, it is tonight. The Los Angeles Chargers traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Should be a barn burner. Personally, I think it's going to be great. Going to be a lot of points scored. Probably the biggest thing going into this game is no Keenan Allen. So let's talk about what this does for the rest of the team. When we looked at last week, Austin Eckler, in terms of rushing attempts, only 14 out of the team's total 25 and only 4 targets. I have to think that number goes up. Mike Williams also had a really quiet game.
And that's where you were the guy high on Mike Williams. So
yes,
here's where I flip the script and ask you a question. Why are you not concerned about Mike Williams, and what should he do this game, even though when Keenan Allen was out last week, he still didn't do much?
Mike Williams needs to be the focal point of this Chargers offense.
I don't disagree with that.
Coming off of the short week, being on the road, being in this tough divisional game, Justin Herbert needs to rely on the guy that's been there the longest now, with Keenan Allen out, been there the longest now, and a guy that is not only a huge red zone threat, but also someone that he can rely upon any part of the field. Mike Williams, they have a great, cast of wide receivers with Joshua Palmer, who I think is a fine sleeper play tomorrow. DeAndre Carter, who they got there, who scored a touchdown last week.
Gerald Everett.
And the addition of Gerald Everett, a tight end there, who is also a very, very nice streamer tight end play this week. If you do have Kittle, and it looks like Kittle's going to be out because he didn't practice today. But it's got to be Mike Williams that steps up. I am almost 100% confident, because you can never be 100% confident. I'm almost 100% confident that Mike Williams will see double-digit targets tomorrow.
If Mike Williams has another bad game, the Chargers will lose.
That's 100%.
They have no chance against the Chiefs if their top 2 receivers don't play.
That is true, and that I think needs to be the mindset for Herbert and this coaching staff and this team going into the game.
I agree. I hope it is. You just never know. I didn't like what I saw. Obviously, it's 1 week. You can't be out on anybody. In fact, a lot of people will be out on some of those guys. Buying low right now.
Mike Williams is my favorite buy low.
Buy low right now is the best. This is the best time to buy low in the entire season, because people overreact to week 1. We say it every year. It's still true. I overreact to week 1, right? Jack offered me Cole Kmet in a trade, and I was like, I have no interest in Cole Kmet. I just don't.
Yeah.
That's an overreaction, possibly, right? But
it's in a dynasty league too.
It is. It is in a dynasty league.
Are you interested in Cole Kmet?
No.
I have Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not. And that could very well be an overreaction on my part. We are just as faulty to overreacting as anybody else. And in week 1, overreactions are the name of the game. So if you've got people who are down on Deebo Samuel because they don't think Trey Lance can throw the ball, Trey Lance because he didn't look like he could throw the ball, other guys like Mike Williams, if you believe in them, this is the best time to make a trade.
Someone that was amazing on Sunday that I don't think really shocked anyone was Patrick Mahomes, right? Spread the ball around as he said he was going to. He said he was going to spread it around despite not having Tyreek Hill anymore. He still threw 5 touchdown passes, over 350 yards. Jack, Travis Kelce, nothing new, right? Still the same dominant tight end that he has been for so many years with Mahomes now. He's not a question mark. Juju looked like the team's number 1 wide receiver. Had 2 fumbles. One of them he lost. One of them went out of bounds. You also look at everyone else on this team. Sky Moore, McCole Hardman. Some of these guys scored. Some of these guys didn't. MVS, what are you looking at this week, Jack?
This week, actually, the biggest thing is the running back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a huge game. He was involved in the passing game. Had 2 touchdowns out of the backfield, 2 receiving touchdowns out of the backfield. He's the guy I want on my roster right now on that team. If he's going to be involved in the passing game, something we've been waiting for his entire career, he's still involved in the rushing game. He only had 7 carries, but nobody's running the ball a whole lot on that team. He's the running back 1 in the passing game, and if he's going to get checkdowns and score because of those checkdowns, I like him. Now, 22 points is... He's not going to do that every single week. I project him more as a 10 to 15 point guy, but he's a starting RB2. He's
a potential low-end RB2, high-end RB3. He's someone who you can fire up in that RB2 spot and feel decent. Feel like you'll get a few points.
I want to hit on this before we move on from this game. Pacheco, right? Also scored a touchdown last week. Dominated really in the fourth quarter. Garbage time, really, but he was still a big factor. If something were to happen to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you look at the waiver wire right now, we weren't too impressed with the names that we saw on there from this past week. Is he someone that maybe you can jump the gun on, beat your competition to, pick him up now as a safe stash, just in case something happens to Clyde, because we know that usage is going to be there for him.
He had more carries than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He had 12. Edwards-Helaire only had 7.
Mm-hmm. Look, and a lot of that, again, came in garbage time in the fourth quarter. If it's not garbage time, Edwards-Helaire is going to be the guy they go to there. But Pacheco is someone who I thought, okay, he's a 7th-round pick. He got a lot of hype in training camp. I'm a Chiefs fan, too. I'm very familiar with the hype. Chiefs Twitter was unbelievable about Pacheco. They were so high on him. I was lower on Pacheco in fantasy football. We've seen that story too many times. 7th-round pick, performs really well. We saw it with Marquez Callaway last year, right? We saw it with Dameon Pierce. I guess 1 week is only 1 week. But, you always have those players who are nobodies. They rise up the board because there's some kind of big thing that they do, and then they fall back to being nobodies. Pacheco concerned me. I saw it. But he's clearly their number 2.
Yes.
And that means that he's worth a roster spot, because if Clyde goes down, Pacheco, if he gets involved, especially in that passing game, Pacheco is going to be a potential start every week.
Panthers versus Giants. Saquon Barkley returned to form last week. People were doubting him even as a 2nd-round pick, and that's the value he was going at in a lot of leagues, and that is looking like an absolute steal. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying, here are the tiers for running backs going forward. It's McCaffrey, it's Taylor, and then it's Saquon, and no one else, which I think is a little extreme right away because it is one game. He did have over 30 points. But let's look at the rest of the Giants' offense there. There's one name that I'm a little bit concerned about, and that's Kadarius Toney, who didn't have a target. He only had 2 rush attempts for over 20 yards. Jack, Kadarius Toney, is he someone that you're keeping on your roster? Probably not starting this week, but is he someone that's worth keeping?
I'm giving him 1 more week.
Because it's not him, right? He's very talented.
He 1 rush attempt for 23 yards. I mean, we saw what he could do the only time he touched the ball.
Yeah.
But defenses, we've seen it every single year that Saquon Barkley has been a part of the Giants. Defenses start to key, especially when the Giants have been bad. Defenses start to key in on Saquon, and then they have to find other outlets of production, and those outlets of production don't exist on the Giants. And maybe it'll be Toney this year. It's sometimes been Sterling Shepard.
Sterling Shepard had a big touchdown this year.
He gets very few targets.
He's gotten the injury bug every single year. Toney's the rookie who needs to be the guy there eventually. So I'm keeping him on my bench 1 more week. I kind of want to see if they put him in the game plan a little bit more.
Toney was a rookie last year, and really where we saw that promise was against that Cowboys in the game where he had over 13 catches. Mm-hmm. He's a PPR monster. We see that, and we think, okay, if he has that capability in him, he's 100% worth the stash. For me, I'm also giving him 1 more week. I saw a lot of people gave up on him. Not me yet.
No,
I can't do it yet.
We know the talent. We know the talent.
When you draft players, right? This is after week 1. When you draft players, that means you believe in the player, right? You're not just drafting someone to draft. I mean, maybe you did, but for the most part, if you're drafting like a Robert Woods, a Kadarius Toney, you're drafting these guys because you saw something in them on draft day that made you believe they were going to contribute to your fantasy roster this season. Why would you give up on them after 1 week? That could be said for Kadarius Toney. That could be said for Cam Akers, right? And we'll get to the Rams in a little bit. But I just can't bring myself to drop some of these guys as much as I love them for a Robbie Anderson just yet, because I know the history, I know the trends, and I know what I signed myself up for when I joined a fantasy football league.
Week 1 overreactions, man.
Let's talk about the Panthers. People weren't happy about Christian McCaffrey, and what do you have? 4 targets, 4 catches. Jack, he scored a touchdown. Was that enough for you?
He had 15 points.
It's fine. I mean, you want McCaffrey. So the bar is so high for Christian McCaffrey.
That's the problem.
Because he said it in the past. Yeah, he only had 10 carries. He had 4 catches. They're easing him back into full workloads of Christian McCaffrey. I'm not concerned yet. Not even close to concerned yet.
But let's say that McCaffrey does get less of a workload this year. Let's say McCaffrey gets 2/3 of the typical workload, right? So typically he'd get 30-ish rush attempts, targets, whatever, combo between, somewhere in there. Let's say that drops down to 20, right? But let's say that also keeps him healthier for longer. Would you take that trade-off?
Yeah, I'm taking that.
I would take that trade-off. McCaffrey might not be the game-breaking #1 guy that we're expecting, but if he stays healthy the entire season, he's a surefire RB1.
Yeah, Jack, would you rather McCaffrey, because we were talking about this the other day, would you rather Christian McCaffrey be the #1 overall running back for the first 9 weeks and miss the rest of the season, or be a top 5 running back end of the top 5, but play the whole season?
Play the whole season.
Right?
No,
that has to be the answer,
Even if he's a mid-tier RB1, let's not even say top 5. Let's say he falls somewhere between 5 and 8, but he plays the whole season. You take that every day of the week over an injury the back half of the season.
That's a really good point right there. Let's move on. Let's talk about the game of the week right here. The Cleveland Browns taking on the New York Jets.
Wait, whose game of the week is this?
My game of the week.
Oh, there we go.
Watching at 12 o'clock on Sunday. New York Jets versus the Browns. Browns' first game at home, and Joe Flacco is going to be starting on the road. From a fan's perspective watching last week, what I can tell everyone listening right now is that the value lies within the running back position. Not only does the team need to run the ball, but the team will dump off the ball. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I probably should. I know Breece Hall and Michael Carter both had a decent amount of targets. Michael Carter would have been a top 5 running back last week if he didn't drop a walk-in touchdown that was given to him basically by Joe Flacco. The offense needs to play with more urgency there. I think they can. Something that I said when I was watching the game was they need to get Garrett Wilson more involved. Immediately, he wasn't involved. The second he came into that game, he made an insane play to get a first down. Joe Flacco rewarded him at the end of the game. 3 straight targets. 2 of them tried to get him a touchdown in the red zone, in the end zone there. Didn't happen. I was very excited when I saw Garrett Wilson. He's someone that I'm looking to pick up on the waiver wire wherever he is.
Every year we see rookie wide receivers that produce at a high level. I mean, we've seen it the last several years. Yeah. Garrett Wilson and Drake London feel like those guys.
Justin Jefferson he didn't start off very hot.
He was on the waiver wire for the first several weeks. And he was
this isn't the bias in me. You saw it.
You
looked, saw it.
That first down, I saw him catch that ball, and I saw him make those
3 men miss.
Yeah.
He made 3 men miss.
He looked phenomenal. I'm going to try and go get him somewhere in one of my leagues. Speaking
of getting someone somewhere, are you keeping Kareem Hunt after his performance last week?
Yes.
Or are you selling high?
He does this every year. No, I'm not selling high. Yeah, he's not going to get 20 points every week. He'll have points in single digits because he's the backup running back there. But every year, he has several games throughout the season at 20-plus points. Typically, he's falling somewhere between that 10 to 20-point range. Every once in a while, it'll be a little bit lower. Again, he's the backup. But he's the receiving back. He's a big play threat at every time. The fact that he goes so late in drafts every single year in and year out, yet continues to finish as a top 24 running back every single year. No, I'm not selling high because the value is exactly what I want. He's my RB3 in a league. That's an awesome RB3 to have.
That's crazy. Jack, the Browns won last week, but it still felt like no one really won if you started a Browns pass catcher. I mean, maybe Donovan Peoples-Jones still could be someone that you're looking at, but Amari Cooper definitely disappointed. And Njoku, who I was praising this man the week before. Jacoby Brissett always looks for the tight end. Shaq Doyle was a top target in Indianapolis. 1 target, 1 catch for David Njoku. Can you start any Browns pass catchers against the Jets this week?
I'm
knowing
I'm
how
like-
great of a
I'm
defense the Jets have.
speechless about this Browns team because Amari Cooper is clearly the most talented
Yes.
guy there, right? But Amari Cooper barely got any targets last week. Donovan Peoples-Jones had 11 targets
That's what I'm
last
saying.
week.
DPP is nice though. Your DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's always been a slept-on receiver. I've got him on my dynasty team. I've always liked Donovan Peoples-Jones. I don't know if he should be the number one over Amari Cooper, but I think he could be.
Would you rather have, because we finished talking about that game, basically the team's both number 2 wide receivers with a quarterback that's average, Baker Mayfield with Robbie Anderson or Jacoby Brissett with Donovan Peoples-Jones? Which wide receiver would you rather have for the season if you're going to keep one right now?
Anderson.
Okay.
Yeah, Robbie Anderson's probably
Okay.
the safer choice there. I mean, we know what Robbie Anderson
We've
can
seen
do.
it.
We've never seen DPJ be consistently productive
Right.
an entire season,
No.
but I'm taking a flyer with my last spot on my bench for DPJ. He's someone I've got up there.
Let's move on now to the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Christian Kirk had 12 targets, 6 catches, basically 100. I think it was 117 yards last week. Looked great, but Travis Etienne did not. James Robinson ended up scoring 2 touchdowns in that game. Travis really took a back seat there. I think he only had 3 or 4 targets as well. Jack, are you concerned that people overdrafted Travis Etienne?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Right out of that, yes.
I was much lower on Travis Etienne than a lot of people were going into the draft. James Robinson's the guy there. Like, they talked about it last year. We need to get James the ball. Well, they got James the ball in this game. James Robinson is the number 1 back. Travis Etienne's the 2. And he's a pass-catching back. And Trevor Lawrence doesn't throw to his pass-catching backs a ton. James Robinson's going to be the ground game there. He's going to be the first and second down back. Etienne will probably be the third down back. And right now, I want the first and second down back in Robinson.
Let's help some people out here. So if that's what you're saying right now, what are you looking to trade to get James Robinson while people might think this could be a little fluky or that he's not actually the number 1 back? And what would you trade Travis Etienne away for if someone still thinks that maybe he's going to have that huge role in this offense?
I'm not trading for James Robinson this
You're
week,
not?
and
Okay.
here's why. He's playing Indianapolis this week, which I think is a very difficult matchup for Robinson. I think that Indianapolis is going to get off to a big start against Jacksonville. They had sort of a down week offensively, and I know they're not a huge team offensively, but I think they're going to get off to a good start. So I don't think Jacksonville's going to run the ball very much. Because of that, I think James Robinson has a down week this week, and after the Indianapolis game, instead of buying high on James Robinson after a 20-point performance, I want to buy low on him next week after the Indianapolis game, and at that point, I'd trade a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 3 for him, I
I
think.
challenge you on that because the Colts only scored 20 points last week in overtime against the Houston Texans.
Okay.
They focused on running the ball. I would have to think if the Jaguars think they're going to stay in this game, they're going to focus on that run game to keep the ball out of Matt Ryan's hands and give Trevor Lawrence the best shot at keeping them in that game. I think this is a week where James Robinson could prove himself to be legit
Really? Okay.
enough, and then you really missed out because now you have someone that just proves himself not only against the top defense, but that he's the top guy in that team. What about you?
Yep. I don't know. I think it's tough. I definitely think I would be willing to trade for him this week. I know that much. I mean,
What would you be willing to give up to get James Robinson?
And that's
my question.
That's
right
a tough question. I'm looking at Fantasy Pros rankings here. They have James Robinson 1 spot above Travis Etienne, and I believe their rankings are like a combination of a lot of
experts.
experts. Exactly. So there's not a lot of consensus, I guess, that James Robinson really is that top guy, which is good if you want to trade for him right now. If you look at their split, James Robinson and Travis Etienne, touch-wise, they weren't that far apart. James Robinson had more.
And Robinson's the one that's coming off the injury right now.
Exactly. I think if you could trade like a similar guy, I mean, don't trade like a Chase Edmonds for him, but I think like because they're in a similar tier, but I think like that would be something I might do. Damian Harris, definitely. If you could trade Damian Harris away for that would be great. They've got Jeff Wilson Jr. nearby as well. I mean, if you picked him up from the waiver wire and flipped him for James Robinson.
Wide receiver-wise, I'd trade Brandon Cooks for him. I think Brandon Cooks is in
Wow.
that range.
Wow.
I would give up...
Wow, that's a high.
That's
that's
pretty high.
I mean,
What about Drake London?
Drake London? I don't know if you're going to get that value
Okay.
back because one
I
that's
think
still
you would.
unproven.
That's what I think.
If you think you
trade
would,
it-
then I think I'm trading.
But-
That's what I
but-
think, yeah.
I think you could, but the problem there becomes Drake London had more targets than Kyle Pitts, and he looked darn good. So I don't know.
That's why I was very happy when I saw it.
Adam Thielen, I'd trade Adam Thielen away for him in a heartbeat.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
I'd trade
Well,
Adam Thielen away.
When we talk about the Falcons, we're going to talk more about Pitts and
Yep.
Drake London and everything. Let's move now to the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the New England Patriots. Najee Harris had 10 carries for 23 yards last week. Chase Claypool had 6 carries for 36 yards. Claypool also had 4 catches for 18 yards. Najee Harris had 2 catches for 3 yards. I want to talk about these two players specifically. First, Jack, what do you make of Najee Harris not seeing that same volume in the receiving game that I've been talking about this year with Ben now gone?
Yeah, but he also got hurt in this game, so
That
I
is
think
also fair.
You have to take the target numbers with a grain of salt in this one. I'm not too concerned about Najee Harris. He's going to be fine. He's still the RB1 there. That's an offense that's going to get the ball in the hands of the running back a decent amount. Tomlin always has gotten the ball in the hands of the running back a very decent amount to where their running backs will be fantasy sustainable year after year. Not concerned about Najee Harris. He might have to sit this week. He said he's going to play.
He said he's going to play. He was limited today in practice on Wednesday. When we were
I
recording
mean,
this.
He's going to play. So I'm fine with Najee Harris. I'm not concerned at all.
Look, you're looking at a floor with Najee Harris. We know, especially from last year,
know
that
the
offensive
floor.
line is bad, right? But
It's improved a little bit, but it's still not where you want it to be with the league
no,
average.
definitely not. 10.6 points. I mean, if that's the floor, then I'll take that every day of the week. I'm not that concerned about Najee.
He had the touchdown. That's what saved him. He
Yep,
had the touchdown.
absolutely. Fire him up, though. I'm not concerned about Najee at all. You're
What
definitely
about
not
Chase
sitting.
Claypool? Chase Claypool obviously didn't do too much in the receiving game. Kind of kept him close there to the line of scrimmage. But 6 carries, 36 yards. Was that a product of the Harris injury? And do you guys think this is something that's sustainable? Obviously, Pickens only 1 catch for 3 yards.
He had 6 targets, though. And I know they weren't the deep passes that we're used to seeing out of
Probably
Chase
better
Claypool,
with Mitch
but
Trubisky throwing the ball.
6 targets? I mean, that's like... It's a decent amount. That's the same amount like DJ Moore had, for example.
Yep.
That's the same amount a lot of wide receiver 2s had.
Terry McLaurin didn't have more than that.
Exactly. So, and plus those 6 carries, I'm okay with Chase Claypool right now starting in a flex.
I mean, Deontay had 12. It's clear who the number 1 is
Yep.
there still.
And Pat Freiermuth led the team in receiving yards.
Pat and Pittsburgh Pat, Claypool's someone to keep rostered, but he's not a start week in
You know,
week out.
Pat's available in one of my leagues on the waiver wire right now.
Really?
You're picking
And
him up, aren't
I
you?
have Zach Ertz and TJ Hawkinson. What am I doing?
Oh, that hurts me.
I know,
That
it's
hurts
crazy.
me.
Like, I kind of want to.
I know.
All right, let's move on now. You said Terry McLaurin's name, which means we're going to talk about a game that I honestly think is really interesting. The Washington Commanders versus the Detroit Lions. You laugh, but it really is.
No, I
Because
agree.
Carson Wentz had 29 fantasy points last week through 4 touchdown passes. Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, and Terry McLaurin all look extremely interesting. And, of course, Antonio Gibson did have a good game, and now he goes up against this Lions defense. Jack, talk to me. This Washington offense doesn't look too shabby with everything hitting on the right cylinder right
No,
now.
Curtis Samuel was my top waiver wire pickup this week. In Detroit's defense has improved from last year. They're still not great, though. And I think Curtis Samuel's a start this week in a flex play. He had 11 targets, for Pete's sake, plus 4 carries.
Do
Antonio
you think that's
Gibson's a
sustainable?
start.
I mean, Terry McLaurin obviously didn't see his usual amount, but is this a new system they're trying out
Maybe.
with Carson Wentz? Is this something where Curtis Samuel becomes maybe the focal point of this Washington offense in a way?
I don't see why not. Curtis Samuel had a lot of hype from us going. Was it last year or 2 seasons
Whenever
ago? When he was on
he
Carolina.
went there, yeah, because Curtis Samuel was great in Carolina.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
had to have been last season when Ron Rivera
And before
took
he
over.
got hurt, because
Yes.
he got hurt before the season,
Ron
right?
Rivera took over there as the head coach. We were like, all right, he's coming over from Carolina. Now Curtis Samuel's coming over from Carolina. This could only mean good things. Then he had the injuries. Then he never played. Now he's in this season healthy and he's playing.
Yep.
Could he be this year's Cordero Patterson?
I don't see why not.
Look, I like Curtis Samuel. He's my top waiver pick, too. I am a little bit concerned about Terry McLaurin. 4 targets is not what you want to see. But at the very least, Terry McLaurin, I mean, he's still going to be a red zone guy, someone that Carson Wentz is going to look for in the red zone because he's a big-bodied receiver, can catch the ball. I don't think Curtis Samuel is going to necessarily repeat what he did this week often. But
he feels like he could be this year's Cordero Patterson.
I do feel he has a very good chance of being a solid wide receiver 2 for you every single game. And I got him in our league, so I'm
There you
pretty
go.
happy about that.
Let's talk about the Lions. DJ Chark, after I went on this whole rant last week, he ended up having a pretty decent game. But AJ Green didn't, but Devin Duvernay did. So, like, I like messed up, and I like went 50-50.
Mhm.
I went 50-50
You know
on that
what?
one.
Sometimes
So it's all right. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean,
Great
just
game.
like Lockett said it, forget it. He seems like he's going to be 15 points. He feels like he's Brandon Cooks now, right?
Yeah.
Like he's just going to constantly get you 10 to 15 points at the very least every single game. He has a safe floor. Jack's wagging a finger at me.
More.
I mean, he had 20 points this week. I'm just saying.
He had 12 targets.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, DJ Chark had 8. I mean, he started the day with a couple of drops. So
Is DJ Chark an ad for you over Robbie Anderson?
No. I like Robbie Anderson a lot.
Okay. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
yes, with Jack. I agree with Jack. No, because I don't trust the Detroit offense as much as I trust the Carolina Panthers offense.
Which is saying a little something. DeAndre Swift is hurt. I don't know if you guys saw the injury report. He is dealing. I want to get this fully right now.
He had a huge first game.
He was awesome.
I don't know why this
He was
isn't-
making guys miss left and right.
In my half PPR league, he dropped like 25 points. So I was very happy about that.
For some reason, my thing's not updated right now. I know he was dealing with some sort of injury today.
Ankle. He wasn't in practice.
It was an ankle injury, not in practice. Jamal Williams, how important is he to have on a fantasy roster? Because last time I checked, only 47% rostered in Yahoo leagues.
Huge Jamal Williams
2
needs to be owned
touchdowns.
everywhere.
37.8% rostered in ESPN.
It's ridiculous. He had 11 carries last week. I mean, what are we doing if you don't have him on your roster?
Only one reception, which is the concerning
cares?
part.
He's a top 40 running back. He's a top 35 running back week in and week out.
He really is.
If DeAndre Swift goes down, he's a top 24 running back for sure.
That's another true fact right there.
He's a top 15 running back.
Probably.
If DeAndre
Oh.
goes down.
No, that's probably right though.
Yeah,
like if
it
he's
probably
getting,
is.
if he starts to get that receiving usage and is also the goal line back,
He's
like
probably a
this-
top 12 running back.
Oh well, hold.
He's probably a top 1 running back.
No.
Jamal Williams
And then
over
my
all of them.
prediction's right.
Jamal
Where I said
Williams.
a running back. I said one skill position player on the Lions will finish in the top 5.
Yep, Jamal-
And right now it's not looking like Hawkinson. So all of you can be quiet. Let's move on because we have to get to all these games. We're not going to. Dolphins taking on the Ravens. J.K. Dobbins was looking good in practice today. He could be good to go this week. I saw some people were picking up Kenyon Drake. I know people were dropping Mike Davis. Jets have the best run defense in the league, so I can understand why it was a little confusing last week what the Ravens were doing
That's
on
the
offense.
best.
But let's talk about J.K. Dobbins. Jack, if he plays, are you not starting him?
No, I don't want any part of J.K. Dobbins this week.
Wow,
I'm
okay.
too concerned still about this Ravens running game. It's been like it's been uninterpretable the entire past 3 years that Lamar Jackson has gone on his run where he's been a top 5 quarterback. And right now, you can't really guess who's gonna go off day in and day out. And usually it's nobody from that backfield other than Lamar Jackson. I really don't want to touch it.
J.K. Dobbins doesn't have an injury designation. He was a full participant. He's a flex play for me. I mean, look, I've got him on a team that is named Baskin Dobbins, so I feel like I have to start him
There you
there.
go.
So
Can I hype up the Jets for a second?
no,
Because I
You've been
found
doing
the
it
stat I was
all-
looking for.
Okay.
The Jets held the Ravens. This is from the Jet Press. Great follow. The Jets held the Ravens to their fewest rushing yards of the Lamar Jackson era. Their starting cornerbacks allowed a total of 8 yards all game. And the Jets still lost by 15. So that tells you what the Jets are right there. And by the way, the Jets are the only team to hold Lamar Jackson to under 20 rushing yards and Mark Andrews to under 60 receiving yards in the same game.
Well, Zach Wilson wasn't in, so when Zach Wilson comes in, you guys are going to win every game, and then you'll be in the playoffs.
Exactly. Sorry, I just wanted to pump up the Jets again because I thought that was a really cool stat. We'll talk about the Dolphins. Tua looks pretty good. I wasn't mad at what I saw from Tua.
Yeah, except for
Tyreek
that.
Looked, okay, yeah.
The one where Tyreek ripped it out of the defense.
Yeah, okay. But Tyreek did have a nice game, and so did Waddle.
Yep.
Gesicki did not. Gesicki's a drop if you had him anyway, because they said they weren't going to use him, and they didn't use him. So you can drop Gesicki. Chase Edmonds had a somewhat concerning game, but Mostert didn't really do anything to challenge him too much. So I still think Chase Edmonds is a...
Edmonds had like 10, right?
Yeah, he's a low-end RB2 this week. He's not someone I'm too concerned about. I think that says all we need to say about the Dolphins. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Buccaneers and the Saints. A lot of injuries going on for the Bucs right now. Chris Godwin's going to be out for a few weeks. Mike Evans is dealing with a minor hamstring thing.
Probably hamstring. It's always hamstring.
Last I saw, Leonard Fournette was also dealing with a little minor injury. He was limited today on Wednesday. How important is it for your team to have Julio Jones on it, Jack?
Well, he was also held out of practice today.
That I saw too, and so was Russell Gage.
Yeah.
So, but still.
All right, so,
They weren't throwing the ball in practice today,
who,
apparently.
who do they still have?
that would be probably, Cameron Brate?
Oh,
Yeah.
Rashad Perriman.
And Rashad
Rashad Perriman.
No,
That's who you want.
I want Julio Jones on my team if especially if he's available on waivers.
You love those aging wide receivers.
I do, but even
he holds on too long. But no, Julio was nice. I have Julio on a team, and I'm very happy to have him.
In ESPN coming into the waiver wire this week, he was only owned in about 40% of leagues.
Too low.
Which is low. Well, he's going to be the wide receiver 3 or 4 there, and when everybody's healthy, I don't want a piece of Julio Jones. But if Evans and Godwin are both out, he's the wide receiver 1 in a Tom Brady-led offense. You want a piece of that,
Yeah,
right?
I can't imagine Evans. I don't think Evans is going to miss this game for this injury, but Godwin will be out at least 2 weeks.
And you want a wide receiver 2 in a Tom Brady-led offense.
Did you see that catch he had down the field, though, where he laid out? I actually, cringed when I saw it, because I was so sure he would get up with an injury.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
And it was just like,
it was one of the best catches of the week. Julio Jones.
Deontay Johnson also had an immaculate.
If Julio Jones is on the field, he needs to be on a roster. Period.
Yes.
He doesn't necessarily need to be started, but he needs to be on a roster because he can do stuff like that catch every single time. He can still do it. He's still got it. The question is, can he stay healthy and do that?
He had 11 points last week in PPR, and Tom Brady stunk.
Yeah.
He was bad. Their offense was bad, and that's not going to happen very often. And they have
probably not.
Matching against New Orleans is going to be tough, but going
that's
forward,
that's like his kryptonite right there.
I know. But going forward, Green Bay's pass defense didn't look great. Kansas City's going to be a shootout. I know their defense is still good. That's going to be a shootout of the game. Then you get Atlanta in Week 5, and that's also going to be a very good offensive day.
Yeah.
Those are 3 teams following this week in New Orleans that I want Julio Jones against.
Quickly, let's talk about the Saints team right here. Michael Thomas, 2 touchdowns in his return in last week. You love to see that. Obviously, Jarvis Landry had a really nice game. Is Jarvis Landry a name you're looking to pick up? Jack, would you rather, since you love these wide receivers so much, would you rather have Jarvis Landry or Julio Jones going forward?
Landry.
Really? Okay.
Landry was a target animal just like he was in Miami when he was fantastic. 9 targets last week. I honestly think he was more of a wide receiver 1 there based on the game plan than Michael Thomas. And I know they had similar target numbers. I like Landry more. I like how they use Landry more, and I think he's going to have the yardage. He's going to have the catches. He's locked in wide receiver 3. He could bump up to wide receiver 2 to me.
In a start 3 wide receiver league, maybe to someone that has him as their 5 or 6 and maybe doesn't believe in him for this season, is he like I must trade for him right now before he has another one of these games?
Yes, absolutely. If you need a wide receiver 3, Jarvis Landry's a great place to start. He's a wide receiver 3 floor with upside. The only concern there becomes, will Chris Olave get more involved as the season progresses? And when Michael Thomas is really in for the entire game, is that going to take away too? So
does
there
Landry
are question
go
marks.
from 9 targets to 5 targets?
Yeah, there are question marks, but I really don't see Landry dropping really below a wide receiver 3. I think if you're desperate for a wide receiver 3, Landry's a great person to target and get in your lineup.
Let's talk about a game that is going to be interesting. It is the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Dallas Cowboys. What are we doing, guys?
Not interesting for a good reason.
Unfortunately, in my main league, I have 3 Cowboys. I have Tony Pollard, Zeke, and CeeDee Lamb.
Why did you do that to yourself?
Because the value was too good each time I went around in the draft.
That's right.
So that's how the cards fell.
I'm sitting CeeDee in a league. I have Gabe Davis and I have Amon-Ra St. Brown.
The Tampa
I have
Bay
to
defense.
start them both.
He had 11 targets last week. Tampa Bay defense was so good. We know how good the Tampa Bay defense is. He's going to be force-fed the ball. So is Zeke. If we're going to do this in order of guys that I'm panicking on based on those 3 that I have on my roster, we can and that's basically the offense plus Schultz. We can put Schultz on there, really. So we'll put Schultz at 1. I think Schultz is fine. I think a tight end is always a quarterback safety blanket, especially when a backup comes in. I think Schultz is still fine for 6 to 7 targets a game, which you want out of a tight end. Maybe it's 5 catches for 55 yards or something, right? 10 points.
He had 9 targets last week.
Zeke for me is number 2, and I'll tell you why. Zeke averaged 5.2 yards per carry against a tough Tampa Bay defense, right? He looked good. I'm going to be honest, I watched this game. Zeke looked good. Problem is, Kellen Moore needs to get on the ball. Because that offensive scheme, for some reason, as much as Jerry Jones has said Ezekiel Elliott needs to get the ball, was not built around Ezekiel Elliott getting the ball. Zeke should not, I think after, he ripped off 2 big runs. He had 2 really nice runs. And then he didn't get another touch until after Dak got hurt. I understand Pollard's good. They need to be running 2 back sets almost all the time. I don't care if the touches are equal. Zeke needs to be getting the goal line work because that's really the back that he is. Pollard can get everything in between. But Zeke looked good enough to me where he is still a running back 2 in my rankings. I need to
dislike
respond.
it.
I need a
Fine with
response
that.
from that. I need a response.
I'm fine with that. I'm not a huge Zeke fan still. And I understand the efficiency is there. But when Andy Dalton came in 2 years ago when Dak Prescott was hurt, Zeke stunk. He was not good, and Andy Dalton, when the offense was bad, Ezekiel Elliott was bad. The offense is going to be bad again. Like, there's no doubt about that with Kellen Moore at the quarterback position. And
Not Kellen Moore, Cooper Rush.
No, he's
Cooper
the
Rush,
offensive
excuse
coordinator.
me.
He can't get to the
Sorry,
ball.
misspoke. With Cooper Rush at the quarterback position, it's going to be bad. Like, I'm not very confident in this Cowboys offense, and when they're bad, Zeke is worse. So
All right.
that's where I'm at.
So this is what we need to do. We need to have a little therapy session right now. So who am I trading away Ezekiel Elliott to get? Because I can't do this.
All right, let's go through the wide
You're
receiver.
trading low, and I don't like trading low.
Would you rather trade CeeDee Lamb or Zeke Lowe? If you're already willing to bench CeeDee, that has to say something.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
trading CD at this point. That's ridiculous.
But
that
look,
he only
I
has
have-
two catches
I have-
on a lot of targets. That's
I
never
know.
going
That's
to
like
happen
that's
again.
ridiculous.
No, that's true. But I have Gabe Davis and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's tough to start CD over both of those guys.
Yeah, I don't know if you can.
It's tough to start him over those two guys. And I have Antonio Gibson for my flex.
Yeah, you're not starting CeeDee Lamb.
No, and so
That's wild.
That's the thing. I've got a good team there, but because
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. But I lost because I had the Dak CD stack.
Would you rather have DJ Moore or Zeke?
DJ Moore, no question about it. I wish I drafted DJ Moore over Zeke. I wish DJ Moore was there when I was drafting. I would have taken him over
DJ
Zeke.
Moore had a bad game. I would go try to buy low on DJ Moore by trading away Zeke if I had Zeke right now.
Yeah,
Yep.
my dad said no, so I have to move
Oh,
on.
did you really
that
try
one.
that trade? Yeah, that's a trade I would try.
Yeah, I respect that.
I think I'm looking down the list. I think Michael Thomas is a
No,
name you could
they
potentially
won't
get
do
for
it.
Zeke.
No way. Terry McLaurin.
Jack, I'll tell you
Or
what.
maybe
I'll tell you
Portland
I'll
Sun.
tell you the trade offer that I got for
Yep.
Zeke. I got one trade offer for Zeke, and it was Christian Kirk straight up.
No way.
That's interesting though, because Christian Kirk.
That's what I said.
That is, and I talked with you about this
Yes.
too. I don't hate that trade because Christian Kirk, the argument for Christian Kirk going into this season was money. And that's an argument that tends to be wrong more often than it's right. But money does talk. And they paid him a lot of money to force feed him the ball.
And
so
he
if
got
they
the
actually,
ball.
And if they do force
They
feed
also
him,
did that with Kenny Galladay, though,
Yep.
and that has not worked out very well for the
yeah,
Giants.
exactly. But this is a different team. And if they do force feed Christian Kirk the ball, then yeah, Christian Kirk could very well easily be a comfortable wide receiver 2 or more. I mean, if he is averaging around 10 targets a game, he's a wide receiver 1.
I mean, Jack, in this league, and I mean, this can definitely help people listening here because I feel like everyone owns Ezekiel Elliott somewhere, right? Well, we're all Zeke owners at heart. We've all had him at some point. I have David Montgomery. I have Dalvin Cook.
Okay.
I have Zeke. I have Pollard.
Then maybe I even consider it.
So
I
it's a
would-
start 3 wide receiver league.
I'd consider that. I think you said that the guy valued Tony Pollard the same, which brings up the next point. Should you trade Tony Pollard
Well,
away
this
for
brings me
Christian
to the point of how does Tony Pollard fit into this equation now? If he's going to be the one receiving all the dump offs
Yeah.
from Cooper Rush, is he someone that you could see averaging double-digit points a game while Dak is out, or is no one safe?
Nobody's safe.
I know,
Other than Schultz, I think nobody's safe.
I know.
Yep, I agree.
Tough pill to swallow.
It's concerning, but it's tough for me to say trade anybody away because you're trading low after week 1.
But this is a rare circumstance,
Yeah,
right?
it
Like
is.
this is you just a
It
team that has a lot of fantasy assets on it. Just lost its starting quarterback. Jerry Jones says for less than 4 weeks. I think it's 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Like Dak is going to be out like 2 months. Elijah Mitchell is a different situation in that I don't think has as big of an effect on a whirlwind of players
Yeah.
as it does Dak and his impact on the Cowboys offense.
Yep.
That's what really makes a trade here almost necessary for a team that has 3 Cowboys on it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A trade is necessary. I would do it for Christian Kirk. If I was in
Yeah.
your situation,
Jack, can I get a double
I would-
verification?
Yeah. I
would you trade Ezekiel Elliott over Tony Pollard? Same. You're getting the same person.
No. Zeke had more carries last week. That's the only reason.
He outtouched Pollard by 2.
And he was more efficient.
Yes.
So I'll keep Zeke.
Okay.
I say trade Pollard as well.
Okay.
Keep Zeke.
Let's move on now because we're probably out of time.
5 minutes.
5 minutes with 6 games.
Oh boy.
All right.
It's normal.
Let's talk about the Falcons and the Rams. We already did talk about Drake London and Kyle Pitts and how good they looked.
Don't
and
freak out about
Patterson-
Kyle Pitts. Go buy low if you can.
Patterson's my RB20 this week in full PPR. He is.
He's
Jack, you were
legit.
right on that one.
He is legit.
You were right on that one, Jack. I'll give you that one.
He's the guy. He was so efficient this week. He averaged more yards per carry than Zeke. And we're talking about how crazy efficient Zeke
Against
is.
the Saints, we were also a tougher defense.
Yep.
No.
Rams looked soft against the Bills, but it is the Bills. So I can see the Rams coming back a little bit stronger in this one.
Yep. Allen
Stafford,
Robinson.
that's what we're going to talk about for a second. Allen Robinson, are you starting or sitting Allen Robinson?
Shit. No way.
Would you start, let's go through, would you start Jarvis Landry over Allen
Yes.
Robinson?
Yeah.
Would you start, going through the list here, would you start Tyler Boyd, because we didn't talk about the Bengals, would you start Tyler Boyd if T. Higgins were to miss the game?
Yes.
Okay.
I probably would. Would you start Darnell Mooney over Allen Robinson?
Oh, I would have already. Why is that even a question? How is that the question?
Yes.
here?
Okay.
Yes.
Monsoon. Monsoon.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
would start. I would start Darnell
If we're talking
Mooney
a
as well.
regular game.
Look, Allen Robinson had the ick in our mouth from last year, and I'm going to be honest, that's continuing with me. I have him on my team. Watching him put those kind of numbers up brought me like flashbacks. Like I was back into last year. I can't do it.
Because he was getting drafted in the same
He's
spot
in
last
wide
year.
receiver 4 territory for me this week. I can't do it. He has to prove it, or I'm going to drop him.
I mean, this is the week to do it. Against the Falcons, this is the week to do it.
Yep.
So let's see.
He's got to prove it. I don't trust it.
Cardinals taking on the Raiders. Both teams need to win this game, but someone's probably going to be 0-2. Cardinals offense. Rondale Moore, I don't know his injury status. You own him in a league.
He's questionable.
He's questionable right now.
He's questionable, so I don't know if he practiced today, but I can look that up.
Zach Ertz had a touchdown last game after coming into the game questionable as well. He's a start this week. He's my tight end 9. Hollywood Brown is my wide receiver 11 this week. I mean, he had 14 points last week. I thought he was going to really explode. He didn't, but I still think there's time. Even in a down game for the Cardinals, Hollywood looked good. I'm excited to see how they build upon that with Kyler Murray this week. As for the Raiders, Josh Jacobs really needs a touchdown to be fantasy relevant. I mean, I think that's so much of a given by now.
Play.
He's a flex play. Devontae Adams looked killer.
Oh, talk about like some good reassurance that he's still
Devontae
as good as he
Adams,
is. Yeah, I mean,
He
that
looks
was
great.
nice.
He's a wide receiver 1 comfortably. Back to the Cardinals. I don't know if Rondale Moore practiced, but Dortch.
Dortch. You're
Greg
picking up
Dortch.
Dortch?
I don't know. That's my question.
Would you pick up and start Dortch?
No,
I mean,
if
there's
Rondale
so many.
Moore doesn't play,
No, I'm looking at Peoples-Jones against the Jets. Then if Sauce is going to be on Cooper, and I would look at Robbie Anderson or any of the Commanders.
look,
wide
Dortch is worth a
receivers.
look. If you're really desperate, he's someone you can fire up. If you're
Very
really desperate. Yeah.
I would even go with DeAndre Carter for the Chargers tomorrow over.
I'd go Dortch.
All right, Dortch.
I love that name. It's fun to say, Dortch.
Are you concerned about Renfro after what Adams did last week? Renfro was a drop on a lot of people's list. I thought it was way too early for that.
I'm not dropping him, but he's the third target there.
Yep.
Which we knew. We
Yeah.
knew that, but Adams dominated everything.
Look, Derek Carr was Adams' college quarterback. So it makes sense that that connection is still strong. They worked out in the offseason together years, even when Devontae Adams was still on the Packers. So, it doesn't surprise me. Renfro's the odd man out. He's going to be, I really think, boom or bust. I think he's going to be pretty touchdown dependent. He's not going to get the target share that we saw last year, which is why he was so awesome in fantasy last year. You're looking at low-end wide receiver 3, probably in my rankings consistently.
My opinion on the Raiders hasn't changed from what it was before last week. And it's been the same thing every single year. They favor one target at the very beginning of the year. Defenses start keying in on that target, and then they start spreading the ball out more. That's exactly the path that this is taking. Devontae Adams had all the targets last week. Darren Waller was very
against the
sparsely
Ravens
targeted.
week 1, yes.
Exactly.
That's what happened last year.
The only difference is Devontae Adams is far and away the best receiver the Raiders have had over
That's
the
true.
last several years.
Yes.
Devontae Adams, Devontae Adams has been the guy on on the Packers, and nobody else even touched him there. I don't think there's a way defenses can key in enough to stop Devontae Adams.
They can try,
but I don't think
probably would open up a little bit more for Renfro.
Yeah, that's true.
And Waller.
Renfro,
Sure.
I think, yes, I agree that Renfro is better, but I'm still not putting him much above a low-end wide receiver 3.
Let's rapid fire through the rest of these games. Seahawks, 49ers, what are you looking at out of the San Francisco backfield, Lucas?
The San Francisco backfield, I'm looking to see if Jeff Wilson Jr. ends up getting the touches. They signed Marlon Mack to the practice squad. What I'm really looking at is Trey Lance. Is Trey Lance going
to be the
better.
team's RB1.
Yep.
That's really what it comes down
Yeah.
to. Trey Lance, the RB1, Deebo Samuel, the RB2, Jeff Wilson, the RB3.
Yeah, it could be. Look, Trey Lance, I'm looking to see, can he play better than he did in a monsoon against the Bears? You know, I'm going to choose to call that game a fluke. I'm going to choose to believe that continue believing in Trey Lance at least for another few weeks. We'll see what happens, though. But Trey Lance, he needs to step it up.
Jack, Houston Texans taking on the Denver Broncos. How important is it for Russell Wilson to throw 4 touchdowns in this game?
4 touchdowns. I don't know if it's that important, but yeah, no, he needs to put up a pretty good number. The 17 points last week, like, that's not bad. But
No, I'm talking about from an angry standpoint of them losing that game and him not getting the ball.
Yeah, that's
fourth
important
quarter.
for him. Yeah,
Yes.
he needs to.
It's
like
more-
the decision to kick, though. I was okay
Really?
with that in that game. Yeah.
With 3 timeouts and one of the best quarterbacks in the league,
it
you're
was
not
4th down.
It's 4th down territory.
Brandon McManus has never hit a 60-yard field goal, and he's been the kicker in Denver. I can guarantee some of those he tried to kick in Denver and still didn't hit
He
it.
had the distance. He just missed it left.
Yeah, maybe it's the accuracy issue. It's not a leg issue. It's more of an accuracy issue.
but that's still concerning.
All right, let's move on. We already talked about the Bengals Cowboys. Jack, Bears and Packers. What do you need to see out of the Bears from this week? Maybe let's go David Montgomery to show that he's still the guy, because Herbert outgained him. Monty still outtouched him.
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery had 17 carries in that game, but he was terribly inefficient. He only averaged 1.5 yards per carry.
Is that his fault?
No, not necessarily.
But is Herbert really the better back?
No. I still think Montgomery's the running back one there. The San Francisco defense, though, is fantastic on the defensive front. He gets Green Bay, Houston, New York, Minnesota the next 4 weeks.
Which New York?
What'd you say?
Which New York?
Giants.
That's the better one, because the New York Jets have the number 1 rush defense in the league, according to Shane.
Oh, what do you know? But no, the other 4 teams, that should be a run-through for David Montgomery.
I love that I was just able to get him. I don't know if you heard the trade. In one of my leagues, some guy wanted one of the top waiver spots, and I had it, and he said, I'll trade you David Montgomery for Devin Duvernay. And that's what I got.
Devin Duvernay had 4 targets.
That's how low people are already on David Montgomery.
No, it's fine. He's going to have a better game next week.
Yep.
I'm excited to start him. I'm starting him over Zeke.
The
Bears
could have 3 wins by week 4.
All right,
Whoa.
pump your brakes now.
Houston and the Giants? Based on how the Bears played against the
Giants
Niners?
won,
Giants-
and Houston tied.
They both looked pretty decent, I'm going to be honest.
Pump
right.
your brakes.
Yeah, they both
More
looked pretty
confident about the Jets going forward. Anyway, Titans and the Bills. We get 2 Monday Night Football games this week, which is like so weird, but I'm kind of for it.
Huh.
And they're really good games. The Bills taking on the Titans. Lucas it's always fun to watch the Bills.
Look, I want Derrick Henry to bounce back.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry. Look,
You
Derrick
need.
Henry
No,
had
you don't want. You need.
Yeah,
him
Derrick Henry
to-
had no targets, which concerns me considering last year he started to get used in the passing game a little bit more. I want him to have more targets. The Bills' defense is great. I'm a little bit concerned about Derrick Henry. He's still an RB1, but a low-end RB1 this week for me.
Jack, we'll wrap it up. Vikings, Eagles. I want this so badly to be like a 40-plus point game for both teams.
It could be.
Both offenses, to me, are 2 of the most fun in the league to watch. Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins. Okay, maybe not the quarterback matchup from the Kirk
Justin
Cousins side, but
Jefferson
Justin
is what you need to
Jefferson,
say.
A.J. Brown. That's what you love to see. Jack, who's the X factor in this game that could put up like a sneaky amount of points?
I think there's 2 guys, and they're
Okay.
not necessarily sneaky, but there's 2 guys I want to see more production from, and it's the wide receiver 2s on either side of the
That's
ball.
what I think
it's Devontae Smith and Adam Thielen.
That's what I was going for with Smith. Was that one? Yeah.
Both of those guys, I think, could have much better days than they did in week 1. Thielen, Jefferson was just so amazing last
Thielen is
week.
what he is, right, guys? Thielen is a mid-range to low-end wide receiver 3 that needs a touchdown. But in this Vikings offense that should pass a lot,
He should be able to get that touchdown.
He should be able to get a touchdown almost every week. That's the thing.
And that's the thing. And Smith needs to see a few more targets. Smith had a bad day, and I just don't believe that he's not going to be a very, very sustainable
Don't drop
fantasy
him,
option.
because people are dropping him. What are you doing?
A.J. Brown has never produced with a lot of volume, and he just got a ton of volume.
And he produced.
If that
He was so
continues,
excited.
A.J. Brown is a surefire wide receiver 1 this
He's a
entire
top 3
season.
guy.
Yep, and Jalen Hurts is probably going to be. He'll be a top 5 fantasy quarterback, but he might be a top 10 NFL quarterback if he continues to do that.
It's very exciting times.
Their defense needs to step up, though. That was concerning.
Yes. But both those teams' offenses, very promising for the future. And that's going to do it for us here at the Fantasy Football Laboratory. If you haven't signed up yet, because I feel like we stopped production a little bit on this, but Underdog, we still have our code with Underdog Flags behind me right here for those of you watching right now. Code FFLab. I think this is week 2, we're going to run a weekly contest.
Yeah, we
That's
will.
an awesome thing that you can do on Underdog is that you have the ability to run a contest and you can draft a team against 9 other people. We'll be one of them. It'll be great. $10 entry, $3 entry, whatever it ends up being. We hope to see you there. Use code FFLab when signing up for Underdog Fantasy. And that's going to do it again. For the Spitfire Lucas Parrish, Chemist Jack McGrath, I'm the King of Trade Shane Palma. Have a good one.